Well, hi there, everybody. Basketball update for Tuesday, February 13th, 2023. First, what we'll talk about are yesterday's games in both college basketball and NBA. And we won't talk about today's NBA games because I haven't prepared the algorithm. And yesterday is one of the reasons why. Notice here in NBA, we go 4-6, awful day. Notice that almost every one of these picks was a favorite, also chosen by the odds makers. The only one we got right that was inconsistent was the Milwaukee Bucks beating the Nuggets at a slightly underdog line. And the Warriors line was close too at only -115. Big games lost. Pacers lose, Raptors lose, Knicks lose, but they were injured. Cavaliers lose at -620 down here to a super injured team. None of this made any sense. NBA is usually better than this, but I haven't been watching. I don't know what's going on with these teams. So I decided not even to update it today. You can only focus on one thing at a time, really, when it comes to sports here. So not a good day. A Trent, I think, posted that he crushed it yesterday betting on NBA. Please do tell. How did you do that? Because this was brutal. So NBA was a rough day. College basketball, of course, more predictable because it's college basketball. Yesterday's day ended up 10-6. But we care more about what did our home teams do. Well, they go 5-2, and it would have been okay, except for Grambling. Grambling did not win. That was a killer. Had that won, it would have been a decent day where enough of the home teams up top won. TCU, Towson, Southern, Duke. Pine Bluff loses as well, but we saw they were streaking poorly, having lost their last two games at least. And it was enough of a reason to understand that for some reason they are not playing well, but Grambling should have won. So really, it's essentially one bad loss on the college basketball algorithm on Monday, but it's just so much more reliable, right? So let's talk about here on Tuesday. Let's discuss the games that we have. We've got 24, it looks like, on the slate. Reasonable sized day, not an enormous day. Boy, things are slowing down because there's so much processing going on in this college basketball file. 25 games, it looks like. Well, first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you the away games because they're games that I'm not, I'm going to advise you that any away team just has difficulty winning. So I'm obviously not going to advise that you would play any of these games, but we're going to glance at them really fast just to see what's on here. We do have a few underdogs. We have 4 underdogs away, which makes sense because we haven't applied any home bump to this. So we're just showing a raw matchup, assuming that the game was at a neutral site, who would win. And it does have this Iowa State, New Mexico, St. John's, Colorado State underdogs. Can get 6 points with Colorado State, but they're all away. So very difficult. Some of these games are going to win. Some of them are going to lose. You're going to win about 50% of them. It's basically what happens on away team. So you can expect to go like 4-5 or 5-4. Iowa State, not bad here though, at a 12% margin. I don't want to advise you to take any away teams, but do understand that Tennessee State against an injured Tennessee Tech is actually a pretty good lineup here, and that's over 20% margin. So these 4 games up at the top, Texas A&M, Drake, North Carolina, and Tennessee State, while they are away teams, that's where you can expect to probably go 3-1 on those 4 games, and even better than 2-2. North Carolina slightly a little bit more injured than Syracuse, but still at 94% health. Yeah, these 4, there's actually a lot on here, right? But we don't want to talk about away teams because those are just for the gamblers. We want to talk about home teams, of which there are a good amount today. So let's go through every one of these games and see if they're a team that we want to put on the money line. Indiana State against Illinois State. Absolutely miserable line, but the margin's enormous and they're winning and Illinois State is losing and everything is pointing at them winning, which is why this line is so terrible. You could throw it on a parlay. It's supposed to win. So Indiana State. Creighton over Georgetown. Creighton also winning. Georgetown not winning for the last 3 games. Georgetown's lost their last 2 in a row at least. Line, of course, ridiculous, but it would say take them to win. Illinois over Michigan. Illinois lost their last game. Michigan has been 1-1 in their last two. Michigan's health is bad at 77%, and this line is ridiculous. But it does say Illinois wins, margin is 27%. So these three. Northern Illinois over Buffalo. Watched the Buffalo game last week. They're just not scoring very much this year. They're just not that good of a team. Northern Illinois, both these teams have been 1-1 in their last two. Got a 20% margin. Line's minus 420. Says take them. BYU over Central Florida, minus 700. 20% margin. BYU's winning. This is, it's saying take these teams. Dayton Flyers. So here's the first time we get under 20% margin. Dayton's at a 17% margin. Streaks are about the same against Duquesne. They are home, minus 400. It probably says play them, even though we're getting now below 20% margin. They'd still be on the list. Boston College. Boston College has lost their last two in a row. They're going up against an injured Louisville that's 1-1 in their last two. Louisville's injured. So here's where I start to say, I think that passing on Boston College is not a bad idea. They having lost two in a row, and Louisville has a reputation, at least, of being a better team. While they are injured here, the line is not consistent with what we want in a game like this. So I'm going to skip over Boston College simply because they're not streaking well. Florida against LSU. LSU's injured. Florida's got a better strength of schedule. Line's minus 520. But this one's better than Boston College because notice that Florida has won their last game. That 50% streak number here means that they're 1-1 in their last one, or 1-2 in the last two games. However, the second game in the denominator there is the game that's today that they have not played yet. So that they won their last game basically. And LSU has lost two games in a row because they've played 3 in the last 8 days and they haven't won. Sorry, 2 in the last 8 days. They haven't won any of them, and they haven't won today's game yet. So Florida, it's okay there to take. Davidson, doing okay. 1-1 in their last two. LaSalle has lost their last two in a row. Davidson at home, minus 345, 13% margin. It's probably on there. George Mason. Should we go to the Mason game tonight, Alex? Should we go to the George Mason game instead of going to hockey practice? It's right down the street. He's half asleep. We could go to the Mason game because they're at home playing George Washington. Mason should win. Yeah, you never been to a college basketball game. Yeah, we could go to the George Mason game. They're kind of fun. And that's a local game, GW versus George Mason. Says Mason would win. We might go. The game is probably at 7:00. It's almost within walking distance. We could consider going. They should win. Yeah, tickets are super cheap. You can get them there. I was at a George Mason game during COVID, and or like when they first opened it up again, and you could go again. And I have video of that. There were like cheerleaders, and there was about 25 people spread out across the entire arena. It was pretty funny. But yeah, anyway, Mason should beat Washington. So that's probably on there. Notice these lines are miserable, but a lot of these teams are going to win. Wisconsin has lost 2 in a row, at least 2 in a row. I think they lost 3 in a row, if I remember correctly. They're also slightly injured and they're playing Ohio State. This is a recipe for an upset. It's also a recipe for Ohio State covering. It is not saying take Wisconsin because they are playing so bad and they only have a 9% margin, although they're at home. So while they may win the game, it's not worth the minus 430 that it is there. So we're skipping over that. Kentucky over Mississippi. Once again, you got injuries down here on these 3 games. You can't play any of these games. Wisconsin, Kentucky, or Baylor. All of those teams have injuries. And only Kentucky is streaking better than Mississippi. So we're going to skip all of those because of the injuries. San Jose State and Air Force, both teams playing poorly. San Jose State minus 160 has a 4% margin. At least the line is better. And there's a little bit of injuries on Air Force. What's the raw power strength of San Jose State? 36%. So here you have bad team versus bad team rule, where if it's a bad team versus a bad team wins, and it might not be your bad team. So we're going to skip over that game as well because San Jose State has not shown that they can win recently. Virginia Tech has not shown that they can win recently, losing their last game. They're going up against Florida State, and while they are at home, this comparison here is not good for Virginia State, so we're going to stay away from that. And then there's Virginia against Pittsburgh. Virginia playing well, but Pittsburgh also playing well. Very close margin. Virginia playing very well, though. Minus 275. Extremely close margin, but this is a game where probably Virginia playing well edges this out at home. So if you're being liberal with your picks here and you're throwing, you're compiling a big round robin, it would be Virginia, Mason, Davidson, Florida, Dayton, BYU, Northern Illinois, because of the injuries on Michigan. Although I almost say skip this Illinois game because they're not winning. Michigan is still Michigan, and the line is just awful. May as well not even take that. And then the line's terrible for Indiana State and Creighton, but it's going to be really, really difficult for them to lose those games. There's no signs of that. 2, 5, 8, 9 games here on a parlay. And you can take Virginia off of there if you really don't want to go down on that list. And here's a parlay with some really bad lines that probably pays up, that probably about doubles your money actually on this 8-team parlay because the lines are so bad. But the odds makers are catching up and understanding that these home teams are winning, and that's why you're not getting a good price. And that's just the way it is. So that's the college basketball update. There's no NBA. I didn't sell an NBA algorithm today. I'm just not focusing on NBA. Other stuff to do. Not even focusing on hockey because the hockey algorithm just doesn't win consistently enough to make me want to spend the time on it. We're about a little more than a week away from MLS season starting. So you'll start to see some videos about Major League Soccer. And then, yeah, spring training is also starting the end of this month. And I got some questions about baseball. And for those who asked about baseball and about wind and weather and other things that can be, I used to have some formulas in the MLB algorithm that involved where the direction the wind was blowing, how many miles per hour, the temperature outside, which involved in humidity, whether or not there was going to be rain, and also the stadium factor when trying to determine over, under, and runs. Used to do all that stuff, not doing it again. Not doing it again. Like harnessing that information and keeping it updated was not worth it. So for those that asked about doing that, yeah, you can spend time trying to program that. I found it wasn't beneficial. It was just a lot of extra work, and it didn't really alter the scores enough. I mean, on a game at Wrigley Field, when the wind is blowing in 18 miles an hour, yeah, of course, that's going to have an impact. You just need to pay attention to the game and then understand and look at the projections and incorporate that yourself when you're looking at the game. Having some formulas do that work, I found it was misleading frequently because it would end up getting a wind or a temperature prior to the game that was not actually accurate. The wind would change direction, and then you have this like bad forecast with weather that wasn't totally accurate. So I just decided just go without it, and you've got rainouts to deal with. I am so looking forward to not doing baseball all summer. I'm looking forward to getting done with the baseball preparation in March. Like at the end of March when the season starts, I'm just going to get you a file and do some how-to tutorial videos, and you can update baseball yourself. I am not doing. I had a great time not doing baseball last summer, and I'm going to continue to not do baseball other than prepare the file. So that's the update for Tuesday. Did provide some home teams to play, and as much as I don't want to advise taking away teams, I do see this Iowa State game specifically is a possible win here. We like this 12% margin. We like the fact that Iowa State has been winning and Cincinnati has lost their last game. Of all the games, it looks decent. And this Colorado State is another team that has been playing excellent. I've been catching some of their games. And San Diego State, also a good team, but Colorado State's definitely going to give them a fight. And all the way down here, taking Colorado State plus that 6 points, that seems like an excellent pick. As well as they're playing, they'll probably cover that and make that a close game, and they might even win. All right. So good luck, everybody. May all your picks be winning. See ya.